funded something that makes you feel good, especially if you have young kids, make a donation. It's a wonderful opportunity to make a donation. Yes, children and healthcare and poverty needs it, but wildlife conservation needs it too. But anyway, if you don't have substance, you're never going to amount to anything. Work is life, but life doesn't have to be work.
The Success in South Florida podcast is brought to you by the team at Rawson Law Firm. If you need DUI or criminal defense representation, call the Rawson Law Firm at 754-206-6200 or check the description of today's episode for more contact information. The Rawson Law Firm, helping good people when bad things happen so they can achieve their best futures.
Welcome back to the Success in South Florida podcast. I'm your host, Adam Rawson, and on today's episode, I am so excited to have Danny Elfenbein here with me today. This is the first one that we're doing live in our new video studio, and Danny has been a great friend of mine since way back to college. We were college roommates twice, and he's doing some really big things in South Florida. And instead of me giving him the introduction, Danny, I want you to just let's talk, right? Tell us about you and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so congrats. Nice little studio here. Very different for an attorney to have a studio in their office. My first live video podcast. So let's have fun.
Welcome.
So I've been here my whole life in Miami, South Florida, except for those few years we spent together at University of Florida.
Great times. Go Gators, by the way.
You can say it. My career has been a long and winding road through a couple different things. A lot of learning, a lot of opportunities, a lot of leadership opportunities, which is really, I think, the foundation of a great career is being able to lead people. For me, that's one of my greatest successes. Where do you want me to start?
Well, so let's take it, I guess, from the end of college, right? So, we were roommates. We had, 4 of us living together, but we were also in a fraternity. And we had a lot of friends outside the fraternity, but, I was going to law school. A lot of us had their path chosen, whether it be law school, medical school, wanting to do accounting or business. And so let's start off with, back in May, right? The spring of 2003. Yeah. What were your plans after college?
So unlike those of you who had these kind of formulaic approaches to life, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an attorney. I was one of those people who didn't know what the hell I wanted to be. And not in a bad way, it was a good way. So, let's rewind a couple years back. When I got to University of Florida, I had already taken, I think, 3 years of accounting in high school. And I thought, here I am. I watched all my friends whose dads were accountants, literally all my friends, right. Whose dads were accountants. And I'm like, they live a good life. I want to be an accountant. And back then I was like, okay, I want to go to one of the big 5, right? The big 5 accounting firms. I was good at it in high school. Numbers were easy for me. And I'll never forget sitting in, and I don't think you took this class. Maybe you did, but I sat in Introduction to Financial Accounting.
Definitely not me. Yeah. I was criminology and psychology.
For anyone who is a University of Florida student, alumni, you probably know this place, Carlton Auditorium. It's like 1,500 kids in a classroom, and there's probably 3,000 people in the class altogether, and it was known as a weed out class. And I sat in there, and I forgot his name. It was a Nigerian professor, and they were teaching us theories, and it was a book this big, but in my mind, I'm like, this is a waste of time. I just did the actual debits and credits for the last 3 years of high school. I don't need to know the theories. This is before the internet really took off, right? This is so 1999. Like we just had we had modems still. 56K was like...
we did have Ethernet in the dorms.
Yeah, exactly. It was until we got to the dorms, right? Like we had 56K modems. And I won't forget sitting in that class, like this is a colossal waste of my time. Like this is terribly boring. And I remember thinking to myself, and it was probably one of the first and only times I've ever done something like this, where I really got deeply introspective. I wrote myself a letter and I said, screw this. I don't want to count somebody else's money for my career. I want to do something I love. And I wrote myself a letter, just a little essay, if you will. I love writing. And it was, I want my office to be overlooking green grass fields, doing things that are good for people, helping people grow, become something, and so on. And my goal was tied to a lifelong, passion of mine, which was the Miami Hurricanes. It's all about the U.
Yep.
And I wanted to be the athletic director of UM. And that's what my goal was.
You think if you hit that maybe they would have another national championship by now?
1999, 2000, 2001, these were good years for the University of Miami.
Those were great years.
Those were the last good years. Great years.
Great years.
For the University of Miami. I don't know if I would have contributed. I'm not an on-the-field player anymore, nor was I back then. But I did know, and I made the decision, and the fun in finance, if you know anything about accounting degrees, I went from pursuing an accounting degree to finance, which is what the fancy people call finance. But I wanted to specialize in sports. So at UF, it was exercise and sports sciences under the School of Hospitality and Management. And I decided I'm going to pursue sports because it's a thing I love. And if I could be an athletic director, I could help people become something, find their dreams. And I don't mean athletic dreams, I mean academic dreams. And help these athletes find a way. Obviously, nowadays, none of this matters anymore because of NIL, but that was a goal of mine. So that's your goal. And I know initially, post college, you got really big into the races, into the Miami Marathon. And so how did you get involved with that? And I know that was, how'd you get involved in that? And just talk us through it. So interesting. The start of my career, I think, was an interesting pivot. And I think my career has been a whole bunch of pivots. I came home, she was my girlfriend then, my wife now, we're high school sweethearts. My girlfriend's family, her sister, husband, and a third partner were starting a marathon in Miami. There hadn't been a marathon in Miami in more than a decade. They had this idea, and so I said, okay, I'll do it. I actually hate running. I think it's terribly boring. Hurts my shins, hurts my knees, hurts my brain. But I love the idea, again, it goes back to being an athletic director, of giving people something that they want, helping them fulfill their dreams. So I love the idea. I love the idea of it being a startup. So the concept of a marathon was on paper. And I would work out of she's now my sister and brother-in-law, out of my in-laws' house over the summer as an intern. And I would work at triathlons, which I knew nothing about. I would call running stores across the country because, again, back then, the internet was very different. So I would call running stores across the country, 300 of them, 400 of them, send them postcards to promote our upcoming race. Back then, it was called the Miami Tropical Marathon. Ended up getting a title sponsor, whatever. I took over from intern. From intern, I ended up coming back after school, and I was still kind of an intern and just focused on marketing and building relationships and thinking of sponsorships. And when you're in a startup, which is really what it was, you wear every hat you can. You solve every problem that you can. And so within a couple months, they said, hey, we need a marketing and PR director. Here I am, 22, director.
Right.
Sure, I'll take it. The pay wasn't great. One, it's in sports. Two, I'm 22, and I mean it's a startup.
So they got you cheap.
Great title, yeah, got me cheap. Great value proposition for all parties. And I built out the marketing and PR for what ended up becoming the Toyota Prius Miami Tropical Marathon, which then grew to the ING Miami Marathon, and is one of the largest marathons and half marathons in the country now. It was an amazing experience. As a young person working in sports, and I say this to this day, the things I did in those 6.5, 7 years, selling $1 million sponsorships, developing ad campaigns, an advertising budget. These are things that you don't get to do until you've worked for years in a job as an associate, as a assistant, whatever. I was doing it all as a 22-year-old, 25-year-old.
Well, and so, I mean, who taught you those things, right? Because here you are, you're young, you're a startup. Were you just thrown in feet to the fire? And if so, how did you react?
My sister-in-law she's amazing. She still is. She was very smart with numbers. So from a budget perspective, here's the money, right? As a team, we knew what our goal was. And I just learned on the fly. I think sports is a fairly safe space. Running even a safer space, it's a pretty clear goal. Hey,
unless you're running from the cops, right?
Unless you're running from the cops, not a safe space.
Okay.
And then you call Ross and Law Firm, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah. After.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
you could call us
small
mid-run.
run.
You know, you could.
So, learned a lot on the fly. I've always been a connector, made a lot of relationships. When you have advertising dollars, it's really easy to make relationships because people want your money. But if you're smart about it, you try and learn from people, engage people, really find out what works. I think the thing that's worked for me in my whole life is to be a people person. So I spent time talking to runners, understanding what made them tick, what made them run, what choices they wanted to make. And I started understanding a little bit about insights, right? Like insights are the things that people feel and think and want.
The emotions.
Right? Yeah. And so
'Cause the emotions drive behavior. Right?
Exactly right. And as you start to look at that, okay, we're all born with a brain. Our brain can do certain things. My brain is good at communicating. Although that might not be proven on this podcast, but
No, you're doing great.
And I just figured out a way to communicate to people based on what they wanted. And I'll give you a real example. I'll never forget. We sent our team to Duluth, Minnesota. Grandma's Marathon. It was one of the most popular marathons at the time. And we would market the Miami Marathon to Duluth. The Miami Marathon was in January. The people in Duluth had limited interest in coming to Miami. One, they thought they were going to get shot.
Okay.
No joke. Those are things that people would say to us. Two, they couldn't train in Minnesota from November through January. Right? So you have to think of those things. And so we adjusted. That was a big learning curve.
And so, you're 22 to 25, you're asking people for money, lots of money, right? You're going there and you're hustling. Was there, did you have any just fear about that? Or did you just kind of have to put on that filter and just go? Or did you think anybody didn't take you seriously?
Yeah. A lot of people don't take you seriously. They don't answer your emails. They don't, answer your phone calls. I think that's the reality. So when you talk about raising money, we're talking about sponsorship.
Right.
And a big part of the job there was to sell sponsorship. We had great partners that helped us sell them. My brother-in-law and I really kind of took the helm. He led the way, right, as a founder and principal. But we took the helm and we saw an opportunity, right? So where there's an opportunity, if you can identify an opportunity and you know who the other side of that future opportunity is going to be, all you need to do is think about what are the value propositions, right? So in our case at the time, it was ING. And we knew that ING was the biggest name in running at the time. And most people probably don't remember ING, a beautiful brand, amazing people out of the Netherlands, Orange Lion, if you remember. Anyway,
I remember that.
They were the sponsor of the ING New York City Marathon. All of a sudden, they became the sponsor of another marathon. And, we said, okay, there's an opportunity. They have an office here in Miami. We started talking to them. And, I'll never forget, we took them to dinner at Joe's Stone Crab one night, their
good place
team. Yeah. And it was the night before the actual marathon. We had a marathon the next morning. They were here scouting, looking, and we took them to dinner. We ate so much. And the night before a marathon, you don't sleep. You wake up at 2 a.m. to go out and set the race up for people. So we're finishing dinner at 11. I get to bed and I will never forget that night. One, we were excited because we had this opportunity in hand.
Right. And then we're talking about for the following year or years
exactly.
to
You
come.
build the relationship. Right. But two, we had eaten so much. I'll never forget laying in bed that night and just I had to go to the shower and just get all of that delicious Joe's out of me because I had to wake up and work that race the next morning. It ended up becoming a beautiful thing. Some of the folks I met at ING are people I still talk to, actually, even though ING is no longer around. A brilliant brand. You talk about leadership and you talk about success. What ING represented, really successful brand. For different reasons, they're no longer around. And we ended up signing, what ended up being a multi-million-dollar deal to have them as our title sponsor. It changed everything.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so, Danny, I know we have tons of things to talk about in your career. What's the number one takeaway or lesson that you learned from your time working at the Miami Marathon?
I hate it. I don't like running. So you have to be smart and strategic. So the number one thing is be bold. I was bold about doing something that wasn't my comfort, wasn't my knowledge, wasn't my passion, but I found my passion within it, right? We were bold, not just me. We were bold about trying to grow this thing, right? There were goals. We wanted this thing to grow, come hell or high water. We wanted sponsorship, come hell or high water. And so the moment where I felt that we had succeeded was the 2000 7 ING New York City Marathon. Pretty sure that was the year. And I was in the lead vehicle with Mary Wittenberg, who is, at the time, she was the CEO of New York Roadrunners. And my joke is, I tell people, oh yeah, I actually ran the New York City Marathon. I beat everybody. So we were in the lead vehicle, a Mercedes-Benz with a sunroof, and we're leading out the race from the Verrazano Bridge all the way to the end. Actually, my wife, Marty, was running the race, her first and only marathon that year. And I stood there, my head out the window, looking at like just the New York City Marathon, tons of people, 10 deep, everywhere you go, the smell of all the foods. And I'm like, we're going to build this thing in Miami. And the team that runs that marathon now, and I still work it every year because it's something I love, has done that and has built this amazing thing. And I think there's a lot to be said about leadership. Frankie Ruiz, who is one of my closest friends, is one of the co-founders who was not the family. And he has created a whole community that all started with that boldness of the idea of a marathon.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, so you make a decision to leave. What went into that decision?
Family and life. So my high school girlfriend, my college girlfriend became my wife, which made the founders my in-laws.
I was there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fun times.
Work in sports sucks. It is exhausting for people. It takes you away from your home, takes you away from your life. There's a lot of glory if you look at it from the outside. And I was working like the least glorious of sports. Like I wasn't in stadiums with, like amazing rock star athletes. No, I was in running. Very niche, okay? But it's still sports. You're traveling, 15 to 20 weekends a year. You're working the weekends. Throughout the year. So I decided, hey, you know what? This work in sports isn't for me anymore. But what was for me was, this is my principles now, I wanted to do something good. I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to make it last. And so my pivot, my entire career has now been based on those principles. Everywhere I work, those are the things that matter to me. Do something good, make an impact, make it last. With the marathon, we did that. I pivoted to the Zoological Society of Florida, which is the nonprofit side of Zoo Miami. At the time, it was Miami Metro Zoo for anyone who is,
love the zoo,
our generation.
So you went from running to basically, dealing with animals.
Yeah, exactly. I went from something I totally hated to something I actually loved, which is wildlife and conservation. I stayed in the realm of strategy. It was a position that was created for me. So at the marathon, the position was created for me based on my skills and knowledge and capabilities. And they recruited me to the zoo based on my skills and knowledge and competencies. And I started building out strategic initiatives around growing our membership program, growing sponsorships. The zoo is a gem. It still is a gem. If anyone out there who's watching, listening, if you haven't been to Zoo Miami, come down, call me. I'll get you there.
Oh, it's
amazing. If you haven't funded something that makes you feel good, especially if you have young kids, make a donation. It's a wonderful opportunity to make a donation. Yes, children and healthcare and poverty needs it, but wildlife conservation needs it too. But anyway, and that's what I did. What I just did now is what I did there. I engaged the world in the amazingness of this place. And I was passionate about it. I raised my oldest son there, essentially. Like, he was there with me all the time.
Yeah. I went to Feast with the Beast once or twice.
It
was a great time. Anytime you can hear Ron McGill speak. Is he still there?
Ron is still there.
Love it.
Ron is, I'm glad you mentioned Ron. I mentioned Frankie Ruiz. Frankie, Ron, a gentleman named Merritt Steerheim, who has a long and storied past in this community. These are people who shaped my career because you could take things away from them as leaders. So we're talking about success in South Florida.
Right.
Frankie, Ron, Merritt, and there's more people I can list, especially at Baptist later in my career. As a young guy, even though some of them were young with me, not Merritt, you start kind of absorbing little principles of leadership and leadership values and behaviors and traits that you say, I want to be like that. So that actually is the better part of what happened for me over those years.
So let's talk about Ron specifically. What's the one thing that you really learned from Ron about leadership?
I think Ron is a unique leader in the sense that he's kind of an on-camera guy, and he's a forever, biologist, zoologist, and now communications
Right.
director.
He's become like basically the face of the
and
zoo
he's
for the last
so people
20
know
years.
him, right, from being on Levitard, from being on Good Morning America, and all these CNN, all these things that he does. But I think the thing about Ron that has always resonated with me, and I think it echoes across a lot of leaders, is conviction. His principles are his conviction. Serve people, believe in your mission, and don't go astray from those things. I don't know that he would say that. I'm not speaking for Ron at all. Those are the things that I took away from him. He does it with such a passion. It's
it's infectious.
If you talk about it's not only infectious, but if we talk about 1%ers in wealth, like he's a 1%er in passion, right? Like he's just unlike, and Frankie the same, by the way, in the running community. I don't think I'll ever be a 1%er in passion. That's a reality. I'm okay with that. 10%er, maybe. But if you can get close to that, that's the best kind of leadership you can have.
Yep, I agree. I agree completely. So, and how long were you there at Zoo Miami?
So essentially at both, I did 6.5, 7 years at both the Marathon and Zoo Miami. Really was there at a pivotal time where we opened up new exhibits, helped grow membership and attendance to record numbers, brought in new corporate sponsors. For me, it was wonderful, and this is going to sound terrible the way I say it, but as a professional who was developing small nonprofit, limited growth, animals are well cared for there. They're not in cages. I felt like I was in a concrete cage. I felt like here I am growing and learning and flourishing, but I couldn't go high enough or far enough.
Okay. And so then what was it? What was your thought process? Did you go home and talk to your wife? Was it just kind of over a few months? And, how did the next opportunity come to you?
What's funny is actually I applied to be the CEO of the Zoological Society because we had seen 4 CEOs over 6 years. Merritt Steerheim was one of them, who is, let me just real quick talk about leadership and mentors.
Go for it.
Merritt Steerheim served as city manager. He helped bring the Lipton, Ericsson, NASDAQ, whatever you want to call it, to Miami. Now it's, what do we call it now?
The Hard Rock?
The one at Hard Rock.
Right, Miami Open.
Yeah, Miami Open.
I was just telling a friend 2 days ago, who's not from here but moved to South Beach, how the Miami Open used to be in Key Biscayne, and he was like, "No way!"
Mind-blowing,
right? He's like, "What do you mean? It's at Hard Rock." I'm like, "Oh no!"
And so Merritt is this luminary. I would say you either love him or you don't. And for me, I loved him. I literally, again, I just saw him the other day. He's recovering. I just saw him the other day. He's 80 something now. My office was next to him. Elfenbein, he'd call me into the office and he'd ask me for my thoughts. And here I am listening to this brilliant man ask me for my thoughts about things. But what I took away from him, and everyone gives you something different, he had this saying, which was, well, one, he was so loyal to people and defending what's good and right. And so I love that. And he was a municipal leader. He's a government guy. So I think it's ingrained in who he is. But he would always say, when we would talk about things or people or the book that he was going to write about his career, he's like, Elfenbein, those people are all flash. He's like, you got to be substance, not flash. And that resonates with me. I mean, we're now almost 15 years later from me having met him, and the idea of substance over flash. If I meet you and you are half bullshit, like I'll know right away.
Yep.
Half bullshit isn't terrible. Full bullshit is, right?
Especially in South Florida.
Yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly. Like half bullshit you can find out, because then as you get to build the relationship, you might find out that's just a layer.
Right. Or a persona.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't have substance, you're never going to amount to anything. If you're just flash, people will see through it.
Eventually, yep.
And maybe when you're 50 or 70, it's going to happen at some point. And so anyway, Merritt, wonderful. Those are 3 leaders who really, I think, shaped my career. But I wanted to become a leader myself, and I wanted to grow. And Baptist Health came calling, one of the greatest companies, definitely over the last 60 years in South Florida. Now we have this influx of all these other companies here, but largest employer in South Florida, well-reputed, amazing healthcare provider and employer. And the funny thing was, at Baptist, you either get hired because you know someone or because you're damn good. And for me, as an administrator, I knew someone who told me I was damn good, but I still think it's because I knew someone.
Okay.
And I got recruited to do new things.
And was this position created for you as well? Because I know you had talked a little bit earlier about jumping in and basically jumping into blue ocean or uncharted territory, and because they've seen your talent, and then you've kind of paved your own way, even through corporate America, right? Because I mean, I know the startup with with the Miami Marathon is one thing. Now it's a lot more corporate.
Even small nonprofit.
Right.
This is big. This is, at the time, it was 19,000 employees. It's now 27,000. This is big. This is corporate.
Right.
When I look back at my career, which is now 22 years of work, I've only had one job in my entire professional career that existed before I took it. And actually, this one at Baptist was the one.
Okay.
The job at the marathon created for me, and additional jobs after that. The job at the zoo created for me, literally Director of Strategic Initiatives and Community Development.
Sounds fancy.
People don't even know what it means.
Right.
I mean, honestly, but it was created for me, and it gave me a kind of a generalist responsibility, right? Nothing focused, which is something I believe in, right? If you can be a really good generalist, there's so much you can do. And
so you don't believe? Do you believe in the "it's not in my job description" kind of attitude?
I don't like job descriptions.
Okay.
I don't like any formalities. I'm not good with formalities.
Neither am I, but a lot of our coaches in the law firm's business say, well, as you grow to a certain point, you have to get more specialists and you have to kind of hone in. And my thing is, I like, yes, we need more specialized talent as we get a little larger, but I still like people to be great teammates and not feel as though, well, I'm in marketing and this is intake, right? No, they're connected. Or I'm a lawyer, so I don't want to get on camera or do any fun things, right? Well, because they all flow together through all parts of the business.
I am not a huge fan of titles. I'm not a huge fan of, which is why I like these weird titles that I've had in my career. I'm not a huge fan of titles. I'm not a huge fan of formalities, because I believe that if you are able to do many things and you can contribute in many ways, then that's what should be taken from you. And that's what you should be willing to give. If you're pigeonholed and you're only focused on one thing, whoever you're supporting or working for or whatever isn't going to get the most out of you.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to give your most. By the way, not everybody fits that. Like, it takes different types of personalities, right? You have to be, there are people who are really good at being, and I've had amazing employees and direct reports who are so good at being focused on one thing. It's not for me.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Not for me either. Yeah.
So Baptist hired me. I was going to lead the community health and strategy department and help build, wellness in the community, right? So my focus was on something that is interesting. This is what I tell people. I went from something I didn't like at all, running, but I loved engaging consumers and convincing them to choose us. Like, that's what I loved, right? The consumer engagement. To something I loved a lot, and I was still consumer facing. I was engaging sponsors and members to choose us in their life, right? I love that. To now is moving to healthcare, which is something that I absolutely hate. Like, it's healthcare and education hand in hand. Like, I don't know which is worse, to be honest. And you asked me if I talked to my wife about it. I talked about whether I should do it or not. I debated going from this thing that I loved to this thing that I hated, but as I went through that process, there's something I figured out. What I hate is healthcare. What I love is the antithesis to healthcare, which is helping people avoid it.
Right.
And so the job I was hired for was actually to engage the community in their health and wellness. We had dietitians on our team. I had exercise instructors on my team. We did programs in the communities. I built relationships with yoga studios, with major running brands, with the old running community that I had, to bring life to the community. That I loved. So that job was created for me, but it didn't stop there.
Okay.
Sorry, that job it was a job that existed that I applied for.
And when you were there, it sounds like you kind of modified it though and made it into your own and tweaked certain things and put the Danny touch on it.
Yeah, I did 2 touches, Danny and Baptist.
Okay.
So Baptist is this amazing institution in South Florida. not because of the healthcare. The healthcare is there. It's amazing. The leadership at Baptist is bar none the best. From a culture perspective, from a development perspective, from a cohort of leaders. I mean, it's thick. There's a lot of leaders.
Right. Well, 27,000 employees.
Yeah. But what I got exposed to there when we talk about success and leadership are common people who have amazing leadership skills, right? So like this isn't like recruiting somebody from elsewhere. These are like South Floridians who grew here, who are common people, like you and I, honestly, who just developed amazing leadership skills that made this, still is, one of the greatest organizations in South Florida.
And so did they have specific programs to grow leaders from within?
Oh yeah, we had, tons of, talent management. I don't remember all the, it was like 9 pages worth of like abbreviations and, acronyms, but OEDs and ODEs and, every one you can think of. But I think what mattered most is I was blessed. So another thing I don't believe in formal mentorship. Like I've never been a part of a formal mentoring program. Actually, I started one. I was in one. I hated it because it was forced. It wasn't real. Right. It wasn't genuine. I was hired by an executive group who were the most real and humble and authentic leaders you could ever imagine. Ironically, mostly woman-led.
Well, I don't think that's ironic. I mean,
in a lot of businesses, when you think of executives, you don't think of women.
That's true.
That's just the reality. It's changing. I don't know the stats on that.
I guess from my opinion is being in law school even 20 years ago, there were more women than men. So
in law school?
Now, yeah. And even, what we deal with prosecutors, public defenders, there's tons.
Yeah.
Judges. So
judges.
Yeah, it's great.
I love those female judges.
We do.
But yeah, so these, and I say women, there's men too, but these women in particular showed me what strong leadership was, what compassionate leadership was. They showed me what substance truly was. Like, yeah, we're going to deal with all the shit, both the human shit, the operational shit, the financial shit, like all of it.
Right.
Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to curse or not.
It's okay. We'll make it happen.
And every day we're going to remember that that's why we're here, is for those people first, then for the operations, then for the finances. And that sounds backwards from a business perspective. And by the way, no one ever said it that way. That's just kind of what I extrapolated. Without the people, you don't have the operations. Without the people who run the operations, you don't have the finances, right? And so that was such an important thing to take away. And amazing leadership.
One of the things that I've learned, it's all about the people, internal and external, right? So for us, criminal defense lawyers, we're not representing businesses, corporations, we're representing people who had their worst times in their lives. And so much of what we see in our industry is maybe defense lawyers that love the intricacies of criminal law, but don't love people, or they get burned out, or they get frustrated by people. And so to be a lawyer or anybody on our legal team here, you have to have a love for helping people. And as we've grown tremendously over the last few years, it's about taking care of our people internally and externally. We've been able to grow because we have great reputations and because we build bonds and relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those things are so important. And when you say, a lot of people think it's backwards, I think that's more of a comment on traditionalism and what people really think.
It's not the MBA model. The MBA model is like, especially now as I'm in the investment world, it's like ROI first, like metrics first. But the metrics that matter at the end of the day when you have a big company are people.
Right, people and relationships, because they drive everything else. And it's one of those things that you can never calculate the ROI, but you know it's there and you know it's a foundation. That's something that I think anybody listening to this just really needs to understand, that there's so many factors that you can't put an actual tangible number on it, but they're the bedrock or the foundation of everything else.
And as an individual leader, meaning like you as a person, you have to create what you want in order to get the most out of people. And that is usually based on what they want. And it doesn't mean like there's an employee that I had that, there's all types of employees.
Right. Oh yeah.
There's the amazing ones, the great ones who aren't always great, right? And I had an employee who I valued her immensely. And I'll never forget this conversation. I literally, it was around Thanksgiving. I took my hand and she came into my office for a meeting. It wasn't like, it was just a, hey, catch up, need to fix some things. and I traced my hand like you do for turkeys.
Right.
And I think she thought I was doing a turkey. And I said, here's my hand. That's all you're getting. I've given you my finger, and now you've taken my hand. You do not get anything else. Right? But even that, like the firmness of being a good leader, it's not about being soft. It's about being a good leader. Like push people, drive people, but also understand what they need and let them know what you need.
Right.
You know, and that's, Baptist was really great at that. And I had, a shout out to Lisa Egwis, who's now a dear friend. I don't work there anymore, who really mentored me, and Nancy Batista Rodriguez and Patricia Rosello, Angie Medina. Like these are all, and if I missed anyone, I'm sorry, but these are all people who shaped me as a leader and what my success was going to be in the future.
And so you're there for, quite some time.
Yeah.
And about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, you made a major pivot. So I know we've been talking about that and going through, and you're like, Adam, I got some big things going on, right? So talk to us about how you came up with that decision to where you're at now in your career.
Yeah, so I've never been a risk taker. I am, it's funny, what we talked about was I hate when people call me an entrepreneur or entrepreneurial. Like I'm creative. I like to push limits and boundaries. I like to think of new things and solutions, but I've never actually been an entrepreneur. And I think it's unfair to entrepreneurs if I'm labeled as one, because what entrepreneurs go through is hell. Okay. I've gone through a different version of hell. Mine is like the less risk averse version. I was an intrapreneur.
Right. We've talked about that.
Yeah. And so at Baptist, I real quick, my first pivot was away from community health and into digital health, and built the entire direct-to-consumer telehealth program before the world understood what telehealth was. So I started in 2017. In 2020 was when everybody else figured it out because COVID.
Oh, I remember in early 2020, our group chats were all like, Danny, got to get me into telehealth.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
You're the only one I know that's been doing this.
That's right. And so that was my glimpse into the world of entrepreneurship. I saw digital health and the trends in digital health growing, and how that could change the world and how that could make an impact and make it last. All of a sudden I found a way through, at the time it was called Baptist Healthcare on Demand. Are we allowed to plug?
Sure.
Not really a plug.
Plug whoever
I think
you
it's
want.
called the Pine app now, but
okay.
I found the thing that people could love about healthcare. And it was this direct-to-consumer telehealth. It was low cost, easy access, solved your problem, right? And that really kind of triggered a new mindset for my life and career. Say, well, let me see what this stuff is. Like in running, I became an expert in running, but I didn't practice running. In the world of zoology, I understood animals and fundraising, but whatever. Now I'm like, wait.
Well, you had a dog.
Yeah, I had a dog. I wanted to be, rest in peace, Hopper. I wanted to be at the forefront of digital health because it was new, it was fresh, and it was solving problems. So really invested my time. Real quick, I convinced the executives at Baptist to give me a position that didn't exist.
Okay.
And I had the keys to the kingdom. It was my job to grow it, and I loved it. I was very lucky. I grew from a manager to a director in a few months, and from a director to an executive. Awesome. As I got into that world, I saw how the world was changing and transforming. I was talking to, in 2020 and 2021, there was, I think it was like $26 billion invested, private equity, venture capitalism in digital health, in 2020. Wow. And I think it was like $32 billion in 2021. 95% of those companies don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's the reality. But all those companies would come and talk to me, right? They were vendors. I was a health system. I was a digital health guy until we brought on some new people. And I'm like, man, these are brilliant ideas. This all sounds wonderful. I started paying attention to this private equity side, this venture capitalism side. Actually flew out to the JP Morgan Health Summit and listened to some deal making going on. I'm like, this is some interesting stuff. Like
whole nother level of business, right?
Yeah, and because I am risk averse and because I just needed job security and stability, which great companies and great jobs suck you into that. Like that's a reality. Right. Like some of us need that. Yeah, some of us need that, right? Got to pay our bills, got to live our life, whatever. June of last year, Baptist offered all executives, and this is happening across healthcare, there's headwinds, a chance to leave. Hey, if any executive wants to take voluntary severance, here you go. I think I'm not allowed to talk about it beyond that. But I raised my hand right away. I knew I was 42. it was a chance for a change. It was a chance for me to take a calculated risk where I would have funded time with severance to figure out what the heck am I going to do next? How do I make sure that as a 43-year-old, I have a midlife reckoning, not crisis, that this is my last chance to be 22 again? That's the way I looked at it. What does that mean? It's not going back to college, but it is going back to college.
Could be. Well, 18, we could start again.
Exactly. And what does that mean is that I wanted to do something new. And I was willing to take a jump into an unknown space and so on. I didn't know what it was going to be. I got into consulting, and things ended up happening that I didn't plan for.
Okay. And looking back, right, was it as scary as you maybe thought? Because we talk about risks versus calculated risks. And I think I've been very good about making calculated risks. And,
Yeah, this painting was one of them.
Okay, that wasn't. I wasn't
Okay,
in charge of that.
yeah.
That wasn't me. I think the studio looks good.
It does look good.
Hopefully, you guys all like
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
But if not, we'll change it next week. No problem. No problem at all. But I think I've been pretty good at taking calculated risks and learning as I've been going, because I've learned, well, what's the worst thing that can really happen? And sometimes it is a bit of. I know you want to talk about connecting the dots, and about you do one thing and then how does that affect another and another and another. And so for you to look at this in this position where there's, it's a strategic and calculated risk, but really the risk was small because you were getting paid, right? And you had time to plan. It wasn't just wake up one day and everything is gone. So kind of walk us through just really of that process of figuring it out and laying the groundwork.
Yeah, so it was a calculated risk. It was scary, but not too scary because I had a couple principles. The first one was don't touch your resume, right? I was not leaving to a job. I was leaving to explore. So, a good friend of mine is executive at a, large organization. I would have lunches with him and he's like, hey, give me your CV, your resume. I want to give it to the chief of HR so they can, find a job for you. And I said, sorry, I have no interest in doing that. And even my wife was shocked. Like, I really don't want to update my resume. I don't want to hand you my resume because if I do, then I go from this 180 view to this tunnel vision. And I didn't want that because I had X period of time to go explore. So that was scary. So that was principle one, don't touch your resume. Principle two, the other part of that is if you know anything about job interviews, once you get into a job interview, like now you're like, okay, do I take this one or not? If they offer you the job, like I'm no longer in control.
Right.
And I didn't want to be out of control. I wanted to be in control. So that was my first thing. I still haven't touched my resume to this day.
It's funny. I had to, I coached high school basketball at American Heritage, and now this fall I'm going to be an adjunct professor there, teaching, and they needed a resume for me.
It's the worst.
And for me, I haven't had a resume in over 15 years. And I was like, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah,
where do I get a template? Worst. Right? Yeah. And I look at resumes quite often from people applying, and then I started going on templates on Canva. And I go, oh, so this is why they look the way.
AI can write it for you now, but whatever. I mean, LinkedIn will write it for you anyway. So my other one was meet as many people as I can, connect as many dots. So I started a consulting firm. People, it's funny when I put it on LinkedIn, like, oh, congrats on your new company. It's not a company, guys. I have no money coming in. All it is a logo and an LLC. And people are like, and I guess people, if you've been successful over life, whatever people judge success by, I guess they just assume if you post something on LinkedIn, you've hit it big. Right. Like there's really a good example of no substance, all flash. Okay.
But you don't need to have 100 people or 50 or 20 to even be a company. The company's you, right?
Yeah, it's me.
You're the company.
So I started a company, Line LLC. So I have this, I attribute it to Steve Jobs. I have this huge belief that, and what Jobs said in his Stanford commencement speech, right, was that you can't live your life, thinking of all the dots you want to connect. You have to do everything you can to, put dots on your line. And I'm messing up the way he said it. It's the way I've processed it. You live your life placing as many dots on your line as you possibly can. Okay, this is my interpretation. Dots can be people, places, things, doesn't matter. What Jobs said is you can look back and see how all of them connected, right? What I say is the more I place, the more I will put effort into connecting them.
So you may have dots in a bunch of different areas, and your job is to just make sure that they're flowing together, connecting.
And to make sure that I create the neural pathways to connect those dots in my mind, right? Like, so my second principle, first was don't touch a resume. Second was I did this thing called Coffee That Counts, where I never drank coffee until I was 41. I've had 81 coffees now, a little bit more, but 81 meaningful coffees. And I started inviting people, hey, let's get coffee that counts. The second I started putting that stuff on my social media, I had people from the past who saw that I left my job, saw that I started my own thing, saw that I'm doing coffees, reach out and want to have coffee. And every single one of those was a meaningful dollar. So that was principle 2.
Okay.
Principle 3 was...
Well, let me stop you there.
Okay.
So for somebody who's maybe a natural introvert, because I know you're, a huge extrovert.
I'm actually an ambivert.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're a stronger...
Big personality. Don't put me in a networking event.
Okay.
I hate them.
Okay. So you're probably a bigger... I think I'm an ambivert too, because I'm the type of person, I go on a plane and I get in my own zone. I don't want to make friends on a plane. I just like to work or be in my area. Now, my wife, she makes friends with everybody she meets, everybody we talk to. And every time we're on a plane, invariably I'm sitting there and going, oh, okay.
Yeah, but here you are on camera.
Right. So
hosting a podcast. So you're an ambivert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm an ambivert too, but I still think you're about 5 notches ahead of me
probably.
in that. But what advice would you have for somebody who's maybe a pure introvert, but as far as meeting people and putting themselves out there?
Yeah, so it's hard because it's psychology and we're wired different ways, right? And there's anxieties and agita that happens for people who are introverted fully. It goes to Malcolm Gladwell, Talking to Strangers. Don't be scared.
Fantastic book.
Yeah,
love it.
Don't be scared to talk to strangers. And his principles are different there. What he's trying to get at. Talk to people. Just try. Find one person. Have that person introduce you to someone. Find a second person, and so on.
Right. Let's finish up with talking about where Dotline is now, some of the things that you're working on for the future, and just some general advice that you would have for listeners here, about how to find their version of success.
So my story of success is exactly what I've said. I have lived a life of plotting dots along my lifeline. Everywhere I've been, everything I've done, I still work the Miami Marathon. I still talk to the zoo people. I still have coffee with my Baptist people, right? So one thing is never leave your past behind you. Always carry your past forward with you. And that is part of the dot line connections. Build as many relationships as you can. I ended up getting really fortunate where I now work for a family office. I'm 22, so I'm 22 again. I work for a family office, but I convinced them they needed someone. They knew they needed someone. They didn't know they needed someone.
Okay.
And I'm doing investor and investment relations, building a network for them, an ecosystem for them, literally taking my dot line idea and building it for them so that we have a pipeline of both funders, right, for anything that we might want funding for, but also deal flow in case we want to invest in anything. I'm in heaven. I know everything about people and relationships. I know nothing about deals. And I'm learning so much. Books, podcasts, whatever. That's my future. And for the next 20 years, that's what I'm going to do as a brand new 22-year-old learning a whole new space, right?
Right.
Advice that I'd give people is, work is life, but life doesn't have to be work, right? So if you leverage work to contribute to your life, okay? So the people you meet, the things you learn, the values you start to create, you can apply those to your life in a way that allows you to be successful. If your life is your work and it's drawing from you and it's sucking from you, you're losing that battle. And the best example I'll give in this day and age is what I tell my kids. Screen sucks. When you look at the screen, it literally sucks you in. It means you are no longer engaged with all the things around you. Forget addiction, which means you're no longer learning, you're no longer growing, you're no longer contributing. And I think that's an important lesson in success is if you're learning, if you're contributing, and if you're engaging with people, you can always find success. If you are not, find a different way to do it.
Right. And I think, with your 4 major different career points, the one thing to me is that's consistent throughout is people. It's people, it's new opportunities, it's building bridges or connecting dots, whatever reference we want to use. Yeah. And that, I think, has contributed, to be a major part of your success throughout the years. Because that, right, whether it's running or animals, or family office, which I'd love to know how I can get into the family. I don't
not
think
my family.
I know.
I
don't think there's any daughters.
Yeah.
Or if they, there's no granddaughters for my kids to get in either, I'm sure.
But look, one last thing I'll say is everyone measures success differently. I don't measure success by my wealth. I truly measure my success by how I've contributed. Do something good, make an impact, make it last. If I do that for my current boss, I'm successful.
Right.
I did it for all my other bosses. I do it for you. I'll do it for anyone. That's success to me.
Right. And so that was fantastic, Danny. Thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, I don't know. There's we still have social media.
We do, right? So where are you? And you got, look, you need 19 more coffees to get to 100.
Yeah, I'm happy to have coffee with anyone who's willing to have a meaningful and worthwhile conversation. But my Instagram is Elfenbein.
Okay.
My LinkedIn is Danny Elfenbein. People call me Elf. Reach out to me, or they can reach out to Ross and Law and
right. We'll connect you. You're easy to find. You're all over everywhere.
Yeah.
So
not
perfect.
Scared of people.
So anybody watching or listening to this, please, reach out to Danny. He loves to meet people, meaningful conversations, and he's learned so much and is a mentor to so many as well. So thank you, folks, for listening.
Adam.
Yeah, Danny, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Good to talk and catch up.
It's been 20 years now.
I know. So thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.